You're now tuned into the Showbank Show from Rated R Studios. I'm here with my co-host, Champagne Schroeder over there.
What up?
Rated R Randy.
You're.
And the exciting new addition to the podcast, EDJ.
Let's go.
And we got some exciting topics to get into. And the main one we really want to talk about is the Monique and Steve Harvey argument, the integrity versus money argument. It's an important conversation that I feel like all Americans can definitely have.
You're right, but watching that interview and reading a little bit more about it, one of her complaints, not on the show, but in general, is that Amy Schumer made more money than she did, or if she did the Netflix special, which she didn't, she would have made less money than Amy Schumer, Dave Chappelle, and Chris Rock. And one of her complaints is the racial card, which, I mean, Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle, we both know, are very black. So that's kind of out. And the sex card of her being female. I mean, Amy Schumer made millions off one of probably the worst comedy specials of all time. And if you watched it, it was terrible. It wasn't funny at all.
Her comedy is trash.
Well,
and she steals.
It wasn't trash. It wasn't trash until that special, and it's absolutely trash now. But it really boils down to, I think Steve Harvey is right, but you did bring up a good point before we came on. I mean, Steve Harvey tried to, undercut Bernie Mac.
Yeah.
You know, but Hollywood is such a different world to where we are. You know what I mean? It's so different, and I think that happens to anybody. I think anybody who wants a spot will take it no matter what the money is. And even if you're Steve Harvey and if you're Bernie Mac, I mean, you're telling me Bernie Mac never tried to undercut somebody, and you just didn't hear about it.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's all about, like I said, Hollywood's a completely different world. But I think I hear where Steve Harvey's come from, and I think, you know, her not getting paid for not doing one thing, I think she could have done it, but, you know, if that's how she feels, and that's how she feels.
I'll say this, and just to kind of get back, you know, from what you were saying, you said, you know, Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle are very black, so racism is out. I don't think that, and I'm not trying to twist your words.
No, I got you.
Just from what you said, in my opinion, I don't think racism is ever out. I think it's just a case of who they're going to let in. You know, Dave Chappelle is cool to let in. Maybe Chris Rock is cool to let in. So I think, you know, with that being said, that's what I think, you know, in regards to that. I think as far as them maybe being sexist, I mean, with Monique, it's the double whammy. Not only are you black, but you're a woman. So I think that plays a piece. And from where she's coming from, she's saying that, all right, I just did Precious. I just got an Oscar. I'm still being lowballed? That's like if somebody's averaging 25, 30 points. They just won the NBA. They just won the finals. And that's their contract year. And you're saying you're going to give them the mid-level exception or not max deal. You know what I'm saying? Like,
That's it.
So she's just like, if I take this, I'm saying it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And and when I say no to this, you're telling me I'm difficult? I'm difficult because I earned this? So that's where she's coming from with that. Now, when you're going into what Steve Harvey is saying, with this isolated, I don't know, quote unquote, incident, if you want to call it, I agree with what Steve Harvey's saying when he's saying we have to go about things a different way. One of the biggest debates or whatever amongst black people is Martin Luther King versus Malcolm. Why they said versus Malcolm, I'm not sure. I don't know why we always pit ourselves against each other, but that's neither here nor there. And, you know, with Martin Luther King's ideologies and methods, a lot of people had a problem with it. You know, they say he's too passive. He's rubbing elbows with the wrong people. He's, you know, not really a force in the movement that way. You can't get anything done with the way you're doing it. I'm more Malcolm X. I'm more in your face with it. I'm more
brash.
More brash about it. So I think both ways you can get things done, but I definitely agree with Steve Harvey in terms of, you know, we may need to go a little bit this way to get our end goal. You know what I'm saying? I don't think it should be called cooning. It's just every black person realistically maneuvers themselves differently in corporate America.
Everybody has to code switch. Every black person I know has to code switch. They can't speak the same way in corporate or work environments that they would at home or in a normal social setting. It's a sad reality. Like, it plays in part with what W.B. Du Bois was talking about in The Souls of Black Folk. Basically, black people have to deal with this thing of this idea of double consciousness, because you have to be conscious of who you are amongst your people and then how you are perceived in the work environment, corporate world. And the worst part is that at the end it kind of does wear at the integrity of the person, because at the end of the day you don't really know if you're being completely true to yourself. You know what I'm saying? Most of the time when you code switch, it's literally out of necessity. It's to survive. It's a survival tactic that most people have picked up.
Well, I mean, you have to be careful with that, though, because, I mean, is it code switching or is it professionalism? Because, I mean, if you're in a corporate world or if you're in a higher position world, you have to speak differently. I mean, I can't speak the same here that I do at work in the morning. I just can't do it. So, I mean, you run into that scenario. Is it black people being forced, or any race, rather, being forced to speak differently or more white or whatever you want to call it? Or is it just simply professionalism? And I think that's a discussion that people need to have as well.
I mean, I can agree with that, just for the simple fact that, I agree I can't talk the same way that I talk in my everyday life. In every circumstance, every setting, necessarily, whether it be business, whether it be around different people or, whatnot.
And it's not always just with speech, it's also with mannerisms, because I know with me being a somewhat larger black man, I can't fully display my full range of emotions whenever I'm at, work. Especially like, let's just say a coworker does something to offend me. I more than likely have to take it on the chin and try to go about it in a overtly professional way, instead of, kind of being more confrontive about it and, just dealing with it as like a normal person would in a workplace. I actually have to go above and beyond. I have to, be the bigger person, just because I'm a black male and the stigma of the black male. And same with black women, you know what I'm saying? They're always being perceived as these, aggressive, loud, angry people. And
and I think that goes right back to the situation, because that's an easy narrative to put out. You're difficult. You don't know what goes on behind closed doors. This is business. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's easy to push forth, kind of whatever narrative that you want to push. And I mean, if you're at the top of the game, you're at the top of the game. Who are you gonna believe? You know what I'm saying? When it's a he said, she said, who are you gonna believe? The person that's at the top, the person that's the performer. You know what I'm saying? Who? I think it's just easy to go into that narrative of, like, you say, oh, she's difficult to work with because we didn't want to pay her more money, but, she wanted more money because, like you said, coming off the Oscar and whatnot, And
then it kind of brings in question of, is it a meritocracy, or is there a lot more politics involved? You know what I'm saying? Because if so, she earned her merits. You know what I'm saying? That's earned. Her peers reviewed it, seen her work, and said, hey, she's, elite. But yet the businesses didn't, want to respond to that. That's the main thing, and it kind of debunks the idea of it being a meritocracy. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Well, and it almost low-key, like, Hollywood in a way, it almost reminds me of, like, in the UFC of, like, who's getting the next title shot? Who's, you know what I'm saying?
Who's the guy?
Like, it's not really a set, like, the Patriots were 13-3, so they're the best team. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, you don't necessarily, there's awards, there's this, there's that, but you don't, like, how do you really judge someone on saying, like, that's the best comedian? That's the best, you got different demographics, you got different, there's so much, there's so much more tied up into it to be, quote unquote, success. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think you hit it on the head earlier. It really boils down to he said, she said. And it is very true. Because, whatever she said to, like she said, she did say no to some powerful people. I mean, Tyler Perry and Oprah Winfrey and whatever his name is, Lee Daniels. I mean, those are three pretty powerful people, and it's not like they're all white people. I mean, they're all black, so it's hard. It is hard because I mean, I do see where she's coming from, and Randy, you brought up a good point. It is a hard situation, but at that point in time, it's easier to see what Steve Harvey's saying than her, because it just sounds like she got mad that she didn't get paid, and it kind of boils down to, now I'm going to tackle a bigger issue now that I didn't get paid, is what I kind of see.
But if a certain situation or if there's wrongdoing done to you, and you notice that this may affect, it may be bigger than you, wouldn't it be justified for you to then maybe protest that wrongdoing that's done upon you?
Well,
Definitely. My bad. I just want to interject real quick because definitely, I totally agree with that. But at the same time, like kind of going back to what EDJ was just saying, like, but if you come off in that light, it discredits you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was just watching Everyday Struggle, and DJ Academics was talking about Nicki Minaj, that how, you know, like with the whole Grammy thing, like if she would have came back and like, you know, really, you know, went off, like you look at that in a different way than you would look at, you know, someone that's like calmly telling their side of the story. You know what I'm saying? Like, whether it's true or not, because like I know me personally, I can get heated and passionate, or you know, heated about something I'm passionate about, and you know, if I was in that situation and I'm getting lowballed after, you know, I just did some dope shit, like, yeah, I'm not gonna be happy. I'm gonna probably be high-headed about it, but at the same time, that's probably also gonna discredit what I got to say, because now I just come off as someone that's angry.
So do you believe that? So what do you? I'm gonna ask Ray. What do you think as far as what Steve Harvey said?
Mainly, with what Steve was saying is, or at least what I perceive, or what I got out of it. There is a game to be played, and in so many words, he was trying to say it was a dirty game. You know what I'm saying? Like, no one gets out clean, and to an extent, everybody has to play the game, quote unquote. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can be the most integral person or, you know, whatever. You've played the game, whether, you know, you want to admit it or not. Because it's not any of us common folk, and I mean that black, white, pink, purple, whatever. It's not our game. You know what I'm saying? It's these, you know, for lack of a better word, elite people. You know, these billionaires. It's their game. And, you know, we're just pawns in it. You know, trying to make a wave and possibly move up. You know, it's a rat race. That's the worst part about it. It is, to succinctly put it, it is a rat race.
So do you think he was right in what he said, or do you think what do you really like get into this?
Partially, I feel like he was partially right. And when he was saying like you got to play the money game, but that's the whole thing, is that like how far do you go with the money game? You know what I'm saying? Because at a certain point, you can keep playing it until you end up losing yourself just for, you know, these earthly riches. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of it, you don't have yourself anymore. And I feel like that's most important. And on Monique's part, I halfway feel like she went to the other side of the extreme. You know what I'm saying? Where she got so lost in herself that she just said, damn the earthly riches. And you know what I'm saying? I kind of feel like we just seen both sides of the spectrum on that part.
Yeah, I think like you've seen almost like the inner struggle of everybody, like right there, and there's the two kind of extremes. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like everybody kind of goes through that struggle, like whether it may be, you know, for millions of dollars, or maybe it's for $2 an hour. You know what I'm saying? Like, am I gonna stay here, but I could go over there for $2 an hour more, or you know, like,
because you watch people make that decision every day.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? When they decide to go in and clock in to work. Because you don't want to be there. You're making some other person millions of dollars, more than likely, while you're getting pennies off of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to say this, because, and I agree with Levi, that is a problem with everybody, right? Whether you're trying to get a lot of money or you're trying to stay true to self, that is a problem that everybody fights. But I think when it comes to the black community, it is fought in a different way, because if someone then decides to go after a lot of money and they decide to play that game, whoa, he's a sellout. You cooning, you shucking and jiving for the white man. I don't, and I may be off, but I don't see that happening in the white community. I don't see you guys saying, well, he chose to get the money, he chose to whatever the case may be. I don't see it saying, well, he's a sellout. I just don't see that happening. So I think it is a problem for everybody, but I think when it comes down to that problem happening in the black community, it's fought more extremely, because you're either good or evil when it comes down to that point.
Yep, no in-betweens.
No in-betweens. You're either the good guy or you're the bad guy.
Yep.
And if you're considered the bad guy, you got to get the fuck out of here. So then we end up canceling our own shit. That's why I think it's fought differently. And I'm not saying everybody doesn't go through it, but I just wanted to bring up that in the black community, this is how it looks. In the black community, it looks like he's on the right side, she's on the wrong side. He or she has to get the fuck out. And then we end up canceling our own because of that. We can't have a discussion and say, well, you do this, you do that. Maybe it's a little bit of both. No, with our people, it's extremes. So somebody has to go. And I just don't like seeing that happening. But I just wanted to bring up kind of the difference in what happens in the situation.
Randy brings up a fantastic point, because it more than likely comes from like a scarcity mindset. You know what I'm saying? A lot of these people, they believe like, there's a limited supply. And especially like when I was talking about Steve Harvey trying to undercut Bernie Mac, it's a scarcity mindset. You know what I'm saying? Instead of a more abundant mindset. Like he's sitting there thinking, well, shit, he's got this rolling. That's one of the only roles that's going to get me out there, and get me big, not knowing that his time was going to come, some years later, damn near 10 years after Bernie Mac's death, and a lot of people go through that. They only see, a certain few get out and just think, oh, like that's one of the last few windows. Like they treat it like it's a small window. And a lot of times it kind of is, because they only let it from the outside looking in as a black man, it kind of just seems like they only let a select few black folks in that fit an agenda. You know what I'm saying? That fit their perception of black people. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, like to go back to what EDJ was saying. Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle, very funny, right? But what did he say? Very black. There's kind of a trend. You know what I'm saying? There's a certain archetype that they look for. In my eyes, they look for the dark-skinned, funny, loud. There's an archetype that they look for, and so like if you don't fit that archetype, you kind of feel like, oh, there may not be as many opportunities for me, which kind of creates this resentful mindset that a lot of these people have.
I think that lies true with anybody though. I mean, if you don't look a certain way or act a certain way, I think people feel like it's they're not in.
And we especially see this in football, because a lot of times if you're not tall, white, and good looking, you're not making quarterback.
Segue.
Right.
He peeped it. Because that's exactly what I was trying to get into, because, you kind of watch this stigma of, the black quarterback. A lot of times they're either undersized or they're just labeled as runners, and that's all they can do. And, they're just pigeonholed, unfairly pigeonholed. Meanwhile, you let guys like Josh Allen get away. He's 6'7" and has a rocket for an arm, but, he only started a season and a half?
Well, I mean, who's going to spend the bottle first on it? Because, I mean, obviously there was a settlement reached with Kaepernick. Obviously, I think a lot of people, and considerably ones, who are African-American, are upset with Kaepernick. Because, back to your point, Randy, he's considered a sellout now. Because, I mean, who knows how much it was worth? No one knows how much it was worth, but there's rumors it's upwards of $100 million. And I mean, that's a lot of money for somebody who I think honestly just saw that he probably wasn't going to start that year. I mean, he probably wasn't going to start anymore. I mean, I'd be pissed too if I got benched by Blaine Gabbert. I think anybody would be pissed if they got benched by Blaine Gabbert. So, I mean, does it really come down to a race thing, or does it come down to that he just didn't have that same ability that he had anymore? Which, before anybody else starts, let's go to the most recent trade, Joe Flacco to Denver, right? So Joe Flacco gets benched by Lamar Jackson, a reverse scenario. Lamar Jackson can't throw a ball worth a damn. If you can think you can throw a ball, then you're on drugs. I mean, he's basically a black Tim Tebow. Am I wrong? He is very similar to Tim Tebow.
Tebow could throw the ball.
He is very... Shut the hell up.
Get him.
Tebow won a playoff game, okay? Fuck off.
Anyway. He's basically Tim Tebow 2.0. But he's a lot faster than Tebow, I would easily say. And probably more athletic than Tebow. But at the same time, Flacco is known for throwing the ball 60 yards down the field on a bad day. I mean, Flacco lets the ball fly out of his hand. But he gets traded to Denver for a 4th-round pick, and Lamar Jackson replaces him. But you didn't hear Joe Flacco really throw a fit. Yeah, he was upset that he got benched, but he's a veteran. He's been in there forever. But you didn't hear him, cause a scene. You didn't hear him say, well, this is now reverse racism. It's all this, it's all that. Teams didn't want Kaepernick because of the noise he made about it. Yes, is it about a bigger issue? It could have been. It very well could have been. And if that's the case, then good for him. But it really just looks like he saw the writing on the wall because, 2 years later, 3 years later, 2 years later, basically, we saw the exact same thing happen to Joe Flacco. He's on a different team because he didn't make a big noise about it. He just got benched. Yeah, he was mad, but he got hurt. And it's really, kind of the same thing as Kaepernick. It's really unfair to both of them, but it's unfair to Flacco too. He was hurt. He got benched and didn't get a chance to come back out because they were winning with Lamar Jackson. And Flacco just didn't get a chance. And so if you don't get a chance and you don't show that you're going to be a problem for other franchises, they're more willing to give you another chance than somebody that looks like they're going to be a problem.
Real quick, I want to throw one thing in of one dude that I know nobody is going to talk about, probably ever, about somebody throwing a fit for changing of the guard. Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning would not teach Andrew Luck, would not do anything with Andrew Luck, and was pissed that the Colts even thought about drafting Andrew Luck.
That's true.
Just, I don't know. I was personally annoyed with Manning for all that because I thought that was
very
silly.
That was unprofessional on his part, to be completely honest.
Same thing with Ben Roethlisberger.
Brett Favre. Let's talk about that and how pissed he was about that.
True.
And went to go play for a divisional rival.
Yeah, that's the whole reason he wanted to go play for the Vikings.
Exactly. So now I kind of get what Eric's talking about because I don't think Kaepernick wouldn't have gotten into this whole thing without some type of personal gain as the end game for it. Because, yes, there's a ton for him to gain. But at the same time, when you think about all the other terrible quarterbacks that have been employed in his absence. Because, and then people, you want to use Joe Flacco, right? Joe Flacco has never thrown for over 4,000 yards. He's never had over 30 touchdowns in a season. The only elite season we seen out of him was that 2012 year. And even then, he still didn't pass over 4,000 yards. I think the highest he's had is 26 touchdowns or something to that effect. Yes, he's an average quarterback, to be completely honest. Besides, if you take away that elite 2012 run, average, very average.
You're right.
But he fits the mold.
Yeah,
he does. Exactly right.
Yeah,
and Kaepernick kind of breaks that mold. But this is the whole thing. His numbers are comparable to Joe Flacco's, Alex Smith's, average game managing quarterbacks before he was benched for Blaine fucking Gabbert. And as much as, the Mizzou wants to, go for Blaine Gabbert, he has been a awful NFL quarterback.
Well, I know. It hurt my soul to say it's true. I mean, Blaine Gabbert was a terrible NFL quarterback, and it could have been the fact that he went to the worst team to go to if you're a quarterback in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine what Blake Bortles could be if he played somewhere else. Because Blake Bortles was a really good quarterback at UCF. He really was.
Okay.
He was a really good quarterback at UCF. And I mean, he goes to Jacksonville, who just swallows quarterbacks whole, unless your name is like, David Gerard or who was the guy shortly after Gerard?
I know Leftwich was decent.
Leftwich, yeah, he was.
Leftwich
right.
couldn't stay healthy though.
Yeah.
That was the only problem
Yeah.
with him. That's why Gerard had the career he had. And he would have been a lifetime backup if it wasn't for Leftwich.
So it really just boils down to the NFL is a game, right? It's all about how you play it. I mean, we'll talk about Kareem Hunt too. I mean, the NFL is a game, and I'm not just saying on the field, off the field. It's a game. You have to play in the rules. The NFL has rules, and NFL is a business. And if people forget about NFL, the players they're the employees. I mean, they're the employees, and Roger Goodell is the owner of it. Go ahead.
So, with that being said, what rules did Kaepernick break?
Well, he didn't break rules, but they're unspoken rules. You know what I'm saying? They're unspoken rules. I'm not saying he broke rule A, B3.
So, in other words, and I know this is what you want to say. Not saying that you think like this, but I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. Kaepernick didn't stay in his lane. I know there's a messy conception of what I just said. I don't believe you think like that, but I'm saying like that from what the NFL owners are thinking, Kaepernick didn't stay in his lane.
Well, and that's why he didn't get picked up, right? Because that's what they're worried about, is that if something happens again, he'll just do the same thing again. And that's why I think they didn't trade for him or didn't inquire about him very much, is that they feared the exact same thing in San Francisco would happen to wherever he went next. And that's agreeable, but I'm not saying he didn't stay in his lane. He felt like something was wronged on his behalf, so he spoke up for it. And then, like, same thing with Monique. There's nothing wrong with speaking up for when you feel wronged with anything you do. But, it's not like Kaepernick struggled. He was adopted. He went to a family that had a decent amount of money.
But Eric, that's a messy way to put it.
It is messy.
Because I didn't struggle either. I'm gonna just tell, I didn't struggle. Both my parents are pharmacists. I never had to go hungry a night in my life. But I'll tell you, I see my people struggling, and it hits me, man. I see what happened with Trayvon Martin. I see what happened with Sandra Bland and all these other my people, and I feel obligated to say something about it. I feel obligated to do something about it. So I understand. At the end of the day, you're white, so you're not gonna understand it. So I just want to sit here and correct you, just as a friend, because that's not the road you want to go down with that. As far as he's been comfortable or he didn't have to struggle, you don't have to struggle to know that your people are struggling. You know what I'm saying?
That's fair.
So I want to stop you right there and get that, because I don't want you to go down that. You know what I'm saying? It's just an educational moment.
No,
at the end of the day, if I don't know something about your culture, I want you to fill me in. If you don't know something, if you say something that may be inaccurate about mine, as a brother, I'm gonna sit here and correct you. You know what I'm saying? So that's all that is. But I just wanted to correct you before you went down that path.
No, I mean, and I'm not making wild accusations, and you're right. There are many situations that are completely different. But at the same time, we'll backtrack and we'll go to this. It seems like odd timing, right? Because the guy was coming off a Super Bowl, what was it, 2 years prior? Something like that, 2 years prior?
Something like that.
He didn't speak about it then. He didn't speak about it the year after. He spoke about it when he got benched. So it's just weird that
I totally agree with you.
The timing is perfect. But I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
I totally agree with what you're saying, but at the same time, I feel like you also got to look at the climate of America at the time, because this is when everything is going down with the what it started with in St. Louis, Ferguson,
Ferguson. Mike Brown,
the Sandra Bland you mentioned, Trayvon Martin, the Freddie Gray. There's just all these different things coming out, and I mean, just between all these situations, and I mean, clearly wrongdoings, plenty of them, and caught on camera, and nothing is happening. And I mean, at the end of the day, like, Colin Kaepernick kneeling for the national anthem is a whole lot better than rioting in Ferguson or rioting anywhere, you know, or anything of that nature. I feel like, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, Kaepernick taking a knee is, I feel like, you know, if you want to say like something tumultuous, you know what I'm saying? That's not that compared to some of these other things that are happening. And at the same time, you look at all of the attention that drew to the NFL and all that. The last time I checked, any press is good press.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know the ratings went down and whatnot, and you know there's boycotts and all this, you know, boycott the NFL and all that. But at the end of the day, I mean, I stand for freedom of speech,
Right.
and I think that
I'll say this: the main thing is like I take a slight issue when you were saying like, oh, Kaepernick taking a knee is better than, you know, some folks rioting. Well, that's the only way they got to make some noise. Kaepernick has a full platform. We talking about, you know, normal everyday people. They don't have that platform. You know what I'm saying?
No, that's totally true. I just want to say real quick, because like that's not necessarily what I meant by that. Like,
okay.
as
I feel like Levi is saying that if there was a choice to be made,
right,
you pick kneeling over rioting.
Right.
But you have all of these owners and whatnot saying what a travesty it is that he's kneeling, you know, at the national anthem. Well, he could have also been right in front of the cameras in Ferguson, you know, rioting with the rest of everybody else. I mean,
that's
like,
also true.
And
honestly,
the riot is what it is, because I agree with you. I mean, that's all those people had to show. Like, we are angry. Like, you know, there's some fucked up shit going on in my community. Like, I'm not happy. I'm not gonna be happy if I see, you know, anyone in my community, you know, get gunned down by a cop that, you know, for what, stealing some Swishers or something like that. What was it?
Allegedly.
Exactly.
That's
and that's another thing. Like you was. Well, not necessarily in Kareem Hunt's case, but just in the NFL in general, this allegedly shit, like, the NFL does not need to play the court system. You know, Ezekiel Elliott spent how much time on the bench for an alleged situation?
Alleged assault
Go ahead.
Yeah, an alleged assault that the charges were eventually dropped. Am I right?
Yeah, they were dropped because, I mean, it was clearly set up by the chick, and I mean, there's no doubt. Kareem Hunt was caught red-handed, okay? I mean, Kareem Hunt, there's no smoke and mirrors, just like Ray Rice. But, I mean, you know, Kareem Hunt and Ray Rice were caught red-handed, right? And it's hard to dispute those facts, but Ezekiel Elliott was completely set up. And it's interesting that, and I don't like Roger Goodell. I think he's a terrible commissioner. I think he is the worst commissioner in any sport ever. And I said this on someone else's podcast earlier last year. I said if he would have taken a stance on Kaepernick right away, this situation would have been completely different, right? But he didn't. He let it, you know, swelter and let the president get involved. And that was his mistake, because when you let a guy get involved that has America by a keyboard, I mean, Goodell just messed up that whole situation. So, more or less, is Kaepernick right? And did he deserve the money? I'll say no. But I do get the point that I'm sure you guys have made and will make, that he deserved the right to say it. And you're right, he did deserve the right to say it, because we live in America and that's exactly how it's supposed to go. But it just seemed to me, and I think to a lot of people, it just seemed like very perfect timing on his part.
I mean, I agree with you, but I also feel like another thing of the perfect timing is that, I mean, could he have also used this time to, well, I'm not a starter. I might not be a starter in the league again. Who knows who will remember my name in 5 to 10 years? Why don't I use this platform I have in front of me right now to say what I want to say? Right. You know, I mean, right. So I feel like you could kind of go both ways with that. Mm-hmm. Is not only that, yeah, maybe he was doing it to get more attention to himself. Maybe he's going to find another starting role somewhere or something to that effect. But he also could have thought, damn, this might be my last chance to really like make a stand for something I believe in, because, you know, who knows where I'm going to have this platform again if, you know, in 5 years I'm not playing in the league. I haven't played in the league for 5 years, or, you know, in the CFL, or, you know, whatever it may be. You might not have this platform in front of you again.
And I agree with what you just said. But to make this, I need to make this point, because when we're talking about does Kaepernick deserve the money, I mean, when you say that, like, Kaepernick wouldn't have made that type of money in the league for the rest of his career. You know what I'm saying? But I think he deserved it because it's statement money. It's saying that, okay, well, look, if you're a player and if you want to make a stand on something, you're talented enough to be in the league, you should not be blackballed. You know what I'm saying? It's, at the end of the day, it's statement money. I know that's not why the NFL made the deal. In my opinion, they made the deal to just brush everything under the rug and just get it over with.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's exactly why they did it.
Yeah.
And nobody can speak about it again.
Yeah,
they all signed, you know.
Hush money. Yeah.
Exactly. But I think with Kaepernick, it's just, I think more or less it's statement money and saying, you know, at the end of the day, I have the talent to still play in the NFL. And no matter what ideology you have or belief you have, if you're trying to stand up for something right, you shouldn't be blackballed, and you shouldn't not be allowed to have a job. So I think more than anything is statement money. So that's why I think he deserves it.
I mean, I feel you. And another thing to me is, I know Kaepernick was, you know, the first one to really, you know, go with the whole kneeling, but why is he pinpointed? You know, I listened to something on the radio last week where basically they were saying for the Chiefs, Colin Kaepernick makes the most sense as a backup for the Kansas City Chiefs and fits into that offense the best. But they also mentioned Eric Reid. Eric Reid just got a new deal with the Carolina Panthers. Mm-hmm. You know, he still doesn't stand for the national anthem. So why is all this heat put on Kaepernick? Like I said, I get it's because he was the first one, but why is it driven home with him? There's been, I mean, countless other players.
I feel like it just wasn't as publicized with Eric Reid because he was unfairly targeted. Because, what is it? He went majority of this past season as a free agent, unsigned free agent. And then once he was finally signed by the Carolina Panthers, this man within a 2-month span was tested 10 times. On average, the average player gets tested 2 to 4 times. 10 times, that sounds like targeting to me. Just anything that they could find on this man to, you know, besmirch his name, to discredit him, you know.
That's true, but he was also playing pretty well. So, I mean, I feel like when players do play really well and above maybe their level of play, they're going to get tested more. We know that for a fact. I mean, I'm not saying I don't necessarily think he wasn't getting targeted, but you also have to put that into context as well.
Yeah, I understand that, but still, either way you split it, 10 times is excessive. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Shit, Edelman should have got tested 10 times in the month of the playoffs.
Hey man, that's a whole that's a whole other can of worms, dog.
Targeting. Target that motherfucker.
Thanks for derailing my point, dog.
I'm sorry.
But Eric Reid was also in the collusion case, correct?
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
And so he'll more than likely get him and Kaepernick will more than likely split that collusion money. Now, the main thing is I'll take from this is, what does Kaepernick do afterwards? Does he keep doing charitable works, or is this the end of the, you know, woke Kaepernick saga?
Time will tell.
That's it.
Time will tell.
Time will tell, but if I had to answer, I'm thinking he's going to go further into it. I think it's in his best interest not to play another down in the NFL. And I think ultimately he's gonna focus on his advocacy.
He should. Especially with the platform that he had and what has become of it. I mean, he should. That's exactly what he should be doing, I think.
Well, I mean, he has to, right? I mean, he basically has to at this point, because if he doesn't, you know, he just goes back to the guy that got the money that he wanted, and he's shut up. I mean, he has to at this point. I mean, even if he doesn't want to, he has to, unless he doesn't care.
And that's totally true, and that kind of plays back into what you were saying earlier about, like, sellout or not. Like, I mean, because if he does, continue all of his work, like, can you really call him a sellout?
No. Honestly, you can't. Because then the work is proven.
Exactly.
And let's talk about it. Like, before he even gets this settlement check, he's been given multiple millions of dollars to charitable causes. So I think this will only make that increase exponentially, man.
Yeah. And last offseason, he offered to give up his whole contract just if one team would sign him. Just if one team would sign him, he would give his whole contract to charity. And still no one signed him.
Talk about Hunt.
Oh. You know what? And that just never looks good on the NFL, honestly. The fact that a guy, just because he wants to speak up a little bit louder than the others, you're letting woman beaters, you know what I'm saying? Actual criminals, guys who catch DUIs, DWIs, assault charges, what have you, they're still playing.
Well, yeah. I mean, Randy Gregory, Alden Smith, all those guys that...
Pac-Man Jones.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And they get chance after chance. What was his name? Greg Hardy. Like, they kept trying to give him chances.
And he's fighting in the UFC now.
Exactly. So,
not to mention the kicker or punter. I can't remember. I think it was kicker for the Giants.
what
was dude's name?
Josh. God, I know exactly.
Yeah,
Josh Brown.
Josh Brown.
Yeah. Josh Brown. He beat his wife, and she made multiple charges like filed against this man, and nothing. Like, I didn't find out about this until last year, and this was
when he wrote the letter to the organization.
Yeah, and the abuse had been going on like 5+ years or something to that effect, and so it kind of it puts the NFL in a weird light. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, we accept abuse against women, but the second you want to take a stand and make loud noises, we can't accept that. That shows no integrity on the league.
But at the end of the day, like Eric said, it is a game.
And business.
And let's talk about it. Kareem Hunt is a top 5 back in the league. You think somebody was going to let him sit out?
Good for business.
Good for business.
Right, okay. Something that just like I remembered from listening about this, what was it? Chris Rose on
Levi just had a brain blast.
I did, man. No. Cause Chris Rose and what's the other dude from Move the Sticks? I'm pretty sure it was the
Jeremiah,
podcast.
Bucky Brooks.
They tried to say that Chubb was a better running back than Kareem Hunt. Why would you sign Kareem Hunt when you have a better running back?
Stay off the weed.
Bro, I lost it. I was like, what are you talking about? This man Kareem Hunt, like you said, one of the top 5 backs in the league.
This is the main thing is I feel like people got caught up in the moment with Nick Chubb. There's not enough tape on Chubb to make me believe that he is a top 5 back in this league. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because he hasn't shown good hands, good receiving ability. Now, his yards after contact is ridiculous. Like, that shit was historical. Like, there's never been another running back that has established that many yards after contact. I can't remember the exact number, but it's outrageous. And
but if you can't play that full game as a running back, and you've got another running back that can,
that's the main thing. I just feel like people kind of find their guy and try to create a narrative for him for being better than guy B. You know what I'm saying? So only reason why I could see them signing Kareem Hunt is maybe insurance.
and the fact that it's John Dorsey running things.
Yeah, exactly. There's the Dorsey connection. Yeah.
Who drafted Kareem Hunt here in Kansas City?
Well, I think Hunt's investigation is still ongoing. It's not over.
Yeah.
So
and there's no telling how long he's going to be on
right, and it could be where he doesn't play at all.
Yeah.
So it really just boils down to the Browns signed him. If he plays, great. If he doesn't, then the Browns are the Browns. They just signed another guy for no reason.
But at least they got him for cheap.
Well, right. Yeah, they did get him for
true.
cheap. But one final point. Nick Chubb is essentially a little bit better of Marshawn Lynch, right? I mean, because he's the big bruiser type. Just, like yards after contact, like you said, we're at a historic level. But how far can you take a Marshawn Lynch type career? Because, I mean, we see a Marshawn Lynch now. I mean, it's ugly to watch. I mean, he
those
can't
hits
run
add
over.
up.
He can't run over anybody, and he's out of shape. And it's just
he's
not the same.
It's that Earl Campbell type back. Earl Campbell couldn't walk anymore. I mean, Sean Alexander, how quick did he fall off a cliff? I mean, Adrian Peterson, we get some glimpses here and there, but I mean, his career fell off. All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to the Schrobank Show. We hope you enjoyed that episode. Go ahead and check us out on all social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We got YouTube. Like, share, and subscribe. Listen to us on SoundCloud, Podcast Addict. Thank you for listening to the show.
We out this bitch.